several Hardee's locations in Atlanta until he retired. After retiring, Shirley and Russell moved to the Great Walters Reynolds Lake Oconee gated community. This was a very affluent area in the middle of Georgia, and they buy this beautiful home in this gated community, which they feel is very safe. While they loved their new home near the lake, the couple were still heavily grieving the loss of their son Mark, who had been killed in 2000 while trying to buy cocaine in Atlanta. His killer had been found and convicted, but of course this did little to ease the pain the couple had been dealing with. They lived in their home for 14 years, and they're making friends, they're attending church, living this quiet life of retired bliss in their dream home. They reportedly loved this area so much that they wanted their ashes spread on the lake after they died. On Saturday, May 3rd, 2014, was the date of the 140th annual Kentucky Derby. Russell and Shirley had plans to go to their friend's house for this Derby watch party. When they didn't show up, it was noticed because they were very reliable people, and this was pretty out of character for them to just blow off a commitment. But their friends weren't immediately alarmed by the couple's absence. But as Saturday turned into Sunday and no one heard from them, friends began trying to get in touch with the couple. They call and they call and they call, but they cannot get a hold of the Dermans. By Tuesday, May 6th, the friends still haven't heard from the Dermans, so they decide to go over and look around the house. They don't want to be intrusive, but they just want to make sure that everything is okay. As the friends approach the home, which is located in a cul-de-sac, they notice several days' worth of papers are piled up in the driveway. They knock on the front door several times, but they get no response. And at this point, they try the front door and find it is unlocked, so they decide to go in. They begin searching the home and calling out for Shirley and Russell, but they're getting no response. When they first enter the home, they're just kind of calling out and kind of peeking in rooms, but after finding nothing, they do a full search of the home, and still there's no sign of the couple. These friends make their way out to the garage thinking, well, let's see if their cars are gone, and this is when they stumble into a scene right out of a horror movie. The couple's two cars were both still in the garage, but laying on the ground in between the two cars was a body. The neighbors think it's Russell, but they aren't sure because the body has no head attached. The head was nowhere to be found. Now, they didn't actually go looking for the head. The minute they stumbled into the garage and realized what was in there, they go running out of there and immediately call 911. Police arrive shortly after the call was placed, but none of the officers at the scene were ready for the appalling scene they were about to investigate. They were able to identify the murder victim as 88-year-old Russell Dermond, who had been decapitated. The weird thing was, his head wasn't found at the scene. It was missing. Also missing was Russell's wife, Shirley. this was believed to have been done to delay the discovery of the body. The house itself didn't have any physical evidence inside. There was no sign of forced entry. Nothing was missing from the home, and police couldn't figure out a motive for the murder. The home was clean and untouched, so police began trying to piece together a timeline for the case, and more importantly, find Shirley. Shirley's purse and her phone were inside the home. Police began this massive search in the area, looking on land and water for Shirley. Everyone was hoping and praying that Shirley would be found alive. Right away, Shirley's picture was put onto bulletins. They were trying to get her picture to the public as quickly as possible. It was believed that Shirley had been kidnapped, and a tip line was set up for the case. 10 days after Russell's body was discovered, a fisherman came across the body floating face down in the lake just 5 miles from the couple's home. The remains were identified as Shirley Dermond. Her body had been in the water for almost 2 weeks, and this had caused it to swell considerably. Police had already searched the lake, but they soon realized what hadn't found her body initially. Shirley's remains had been weighed down with concrete blocks, so this is why her body hadn't been found during the initial search, because she had been weighed down under the water. Her remains were still intact for the most part. She had not been decapitated like her husband. It was obvious that she had suffered some pretty severe head injuries, and her autopsy would later specify that it seemed like she had been struck in the head by a claw hammer. There were no signs of sexual assault. After Shirley's remains were discovered, police did another search in the area, hoping to find more evidence, maybe the murder weapon, or maybe even Russell's head, but they never found anything else. So police take this deep look into the Dermonds' life, trying to find a motive. They searched phone records, bank records, but nothing pointed them to a possible motive. Investigators found nothing suspicious in the couple's behavior leading up to the murders. They were able to confirm that the couple had been alive on Friday, May 2nd. Russell had been seen by a neighbor walking through the neighborhood that day, and Shirley had finished a crossword puzzle from that day's newspaper, which was later found in their home. None of the neighbors in the surrounding area reported hearing or seeing anything out of the ordinary. The neighborhood the couple lived in was gated, so there were security cameras at the entrance that showed each person who drove into the neighborhood. However, these cameras were not in working order because there had been a huge storm a couple weeks ago that had taken out the cameras, and they hadn't been restored yet. So while they didn't have a record of all of the cars driving into the neighborhood, police did say they weren't even sure the killer had driven into the neighborhood. In fact, they think the killer may have come in from the lake. Lake Oconee is this very large lake, and this is the lake they live on, and it is not private. There's public access to it. The Dermonds' house had its own private dock and a walkway that led right up to the house. So it is possible that the killer gained access to the home from the lake, and they entered the home through the back door. If this was the case, no one would have seen them. It would easy to remove Shirley's body and put it into the boat without drawing any attention, and Shirley's body was found just 5 miles away, so this kind of fit. Police have a very rough timeline. They did suspect that the killer had struck early Saturday morning on May 3rd, and this was the same day as the Kentucky Derby watch party that the couple had failed to show up at. Police believe this because they found some mail in the mailbox dated back to Saturday, so it was believed the couple picked up their mail on Friday and then something happened on Saturday. The reason they believed it happened pretty early was because Russell still had his pajamas on when his body was discovered. Shirley had died from blunt force trauma, but there was nothing at the crime scene. Not even any tiny droplets of blood. Nothing. The house was spotless. And this stumped police because they didn't know where the crime had taken place. It did not seem that the couple had been killed in their home. But if they weren't killed in their home, then what had happened? Had somebody taken them from their home and killed them and then brought Russell's body back without leaving any evidence of themselves behind? They did say there were no fingerprints found inside the home, but they have stated in several press conferences that the home was spotless. That's the word they use, spotless. The Emmy did note that Russell was dead when he had been decapitated. His body had no signs of trauma, but there was gunpowder residue on the collar of Russell's shirt, so it is believed he was shot in the head, although his head has still never been found. The cut to Russell's neck was clean, very neat, as if the killer had taken his time. It is believed the head was removed using a very sharp knife. Police tried to figure out the motive for these killings, thinking if they could just figure out the why, that would lead them to the who. The couple was quite wealthy, so it seemed as if the only motive would be if someone wanted their money, but nothing was taken, not a thing. 1 year after the murders, investigators told the public that the police had been told about a man who was spotted in the German property. He had been seen walking on their back lawn when the murders took place. However, police never identified this man or even gave a description of him. All they said was that a witness had seen a man, and they gave no further information. A sketch of this person was never made, so I don't know if the witness either just didn't get a good look at the suspect, or if police have a specific suspect in mind. If they do have a specific person in mind, it's possible the neighbor recognized this man, and if the neighbors knew him, then maybe the Germans did too. In 2015, the sheriff told reporters that he had a person of interest in the case. This person had given police false information, and they were like, if this person had nothing to hide, why would he lie? I really do think that in this case, police, they have to have a lot more information than they're releasing, because some of this stuff doesn't make sense. But there are some theories in the case. The first theory has to do with the murder of their son, Mark. People just have a hard time believing that 3 people in one family would all be murdered and they wouldn't be connected. However, Mark was buying drugs. He was killed by a drug dealer who was caught and convicted, and this person was behind bars when the Dermonts were killed, so it was 14 years later. It doesn't seem like these two are connected. Other people wondered if maybe someone close to the couple, perhaps right in their very own family, were responsible. Now, the couple's home was worth about $1.4 million at the time of their deaths, so the family was looked into because they thought maybe, the parents were both killed so the kids could get their inheritance, but police quickly ruled out the 3 living children. They all passed polygraphs and had airtight alibis. Other people believe this may have been the work of a hitman, and this makes the most sense to me because of how clean everything was done, right? Like, somebody came into that home and murdered 2 people and didn't leave a trace. So it kind of seems like a professional hit to me, but where's the motive? Like, there's still no motive, so at the same time, it doesn't make that much sense. The other theory is that the killer had no motive. It was just somebody who went in and killed the couple, and maybe they were picked completely at random. Police have a theory of their own in this case. They think that this murder was carried out by more than one person, and they are likely carrying out another crime at the same time. They think they were trying to maybe abduct Shirley and hold her for ransom while holding Russell back, but something happened, things got a little messy, and then they ended up having to kill both of them. And this is the theory that police believe is most likely to have happened. Police have said that they do believe the killer is someone that the couple was familiar with because they were familiar with the layout of the home. They also said it would have had to have been someone who was strong because to move the bodies would have taken some strength. So they believe they are dealing with a man. They have also said they don't believe the killer lived in the area at the time because someone who could do such awful things wouldn't be able to blend in normally with society. Police have still not solved this case, but they are following up on leads, and they hope that someone will eventually trip up at some point and say something to someone